This is unexpected to a Norwegian resident. A massive container ship ran aground in Norway, narrowly missing a coastal home. Residents shocked as crashed just few meters away. The resident didn't even wake up before the neighbor woke him up. Now let's deep dive into this AI podcast. Actually, how it happened.
Okay, try and picture this for a second. Just imagine you're asleep, safely in bed, quiet house, and then you wake up, not to your alarm, no, but to this completely impossible sight. A huge cargo ship basically parked right outside your bedroom window.
It sounds completely made up, but that is precisely what happened to a man in Norway.
Yeah. And today, we're doing a deep dive into this, well, truly unbelievable story. A 440-foot ship somehow ending up aground, just yards from a retired guy's house.
We've been looking through all the news reports, the accounts we could find, covering this really bizarre event.
And what we want to do is unpack how this whole nautical nightmare even happened. You know, what went down right afterwards, the chaos.
And the reactions to the people involved, which were, well, surprisingly varied.
Totally. And try to figure out what this wild tale tells us about, I guess, those moments when these huge, global systems just crash, sometimes literally, into everyday life. Okay, let's get into it.
So the setting for this, it's actually quite peaceful. Or it was.
Right. A home right on the shores of a fjord. Place called Beinset near Trondheim in central Norway. Sort of rural.
And the man right at the center of it all is Johan Helberg. He's retired, living there. Sounds like a pretty quiet life, enjoying the scenery.
Scenery that, included ships. He was used to seeing them, but as he pointed out, usually, at a distance.
Miles away, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly garden features.
Not garden features, no. Okay, so the actual moment it happened, the crash, this was around 5 a.m. Thursday morning.
Middle of the night, basically.
Yeah.
And, Mr. Helberg was fast asleep.
And the ship.
It's called the NCL Salten. It's a container vessel, and not a small one. We're talking 440 feet long. That's about 135 meters.
So pretty substantial. And the impact, well, it didn't just bump the shore. It properly ran aground.
And not just anywhere.
Yeah.
Right outside his bedroom window. It's incredible.
And the nearness of it is just staggering. How close did it actually get?
The reports say it stopped, ground to a halt, only about 5 or 6 yards from his house.
5 or 6 yards? That's nothing.
It's terrifyingly close. And Johan Helberg himself said, had the ship's course deviated even slightly, it could have plowed straight through my house. He called it completely surreal.
I bet. Surreal feels like an understatement for seeing a container ship blocking your view. But, okay, how did he even find out if he was asleep? Did he hear it?
Apparently not. That's one of the strangest bits. The initial grounding, the impact, silent to him inside the house.
Wow. So who?
It was actually his neighbor, a guy named Jostein Jorgensen. He heard a noise, looked out, and saw this ship heading full speed right for the land, right for Johan's house.
Oh my God. Can you imagine seeing that? Your neighbor's house. About to get hit by a ship. What did he do?
What you'd hope someone would do. He ran straight over to Johan's place, just banging on the doorbell repeatedly.
And Johan's reaction, still half asleep, was apparently just pure confusion. Who on earth is ringing my doorbell at 5:45 in the morning? Which, is fair enough usually.
Totally relatable, yeah. But the doorbell wasn't enough. Jostein actually had to call him on the phone to finally wake him up properly.
And then he gets up, goes to the window, pulls back the curtain, and boom! There's this absolutely enormous vessel just looming over his garden.
Just sitting there.
Yeah.
The scale must have been, mind-bending, like you said.
So the human reaction side of this is fascinating, too. You'd think sheer panic, right?
You absolutely would. But Johan Helberg himself, the guy whose house nearly got demolished,
Yep.
the reports quote him as being surprisingly calm. He actually said, "I impressed myself by staying cool. I've seen and been through worse."
Been through worse than a ship in his garden. That is remarkable composure. Maybe shock.
Could be shock, yeah. Or maybe he's just seen a lot in life. His neighbor, Jostein, though, the witness, he was reportedly just left in total disbelief, which sounds more like the expected reaction.
Definitely. And the wider community.
The locals, according to the articles, were just completely stunned. They kept using that word surreal because, well, it is. It's not something you see every day or ever in a quiet fjord.
No kidding. Okay, so let's get into some more details about the ship and what happened right after it got stuck.
Sure. So the NCL Salten, it flies a Cypriot flag, and it was actually on its planned route heading to a place called Orkanger, further into the Trondheim fjord.
Right. But the key question, the massive question, is why did it suddenly veer off course like that? Do we know?
Well, that's the thing. At this stage, the sources are clear. The cause remains unknown. It's being investigated. Norwegian police, coastal authorities, they're all looking into it.
And the crew.
16 people on board, mix of nationalities apparently, including a Norwegian captain and also Russian and Ukrainian crew members.
Okay. And crucially, amidst all this chaos, any injuries or spills, that's always a major concern with groundings.
Thankfully, no. That's a really important positive point here. All reports confirm no injuries, nobody hurt on the ship or on shore. And no signs of oil spills either.
That's a huge relief. An environmental disaster on top of everything else.
Exactly. But the grounding did have a physical impact beyond just, the ship being stuck.
We could call it a landslide.
A landslide from the impact.
Seems like it, yeah. Probably the vibrations or the displacement. Described as a clay landslide, about 100 meters wide, right there on the shore near the house.
Wow. So the authorities had to deal with that too.
Yeah, they cordoned off the whole area.
Yeah.
The house, the landslide zone. Safety precautions.
Okay, so ship stuck, landslide nearby. What about getting the ship out? Did they try?
They did, pretty quickly, actually. Later that same day, Thursday evening, during high tide, they brought in tugboats to try and pull it free.
Made sense. High tide gives you the best chance.
And it didn't work. Nope. Unsuccessful. The NCL Salten stayed firmly stuck right there in the mud well into the night.
I guess getting a 440-foot ship unstuck isn't simple. Not at all.
Yeah.
Especially when it's properly dug itself into the shoreline like that.
So what about the company? NCL, the operators, what did they say?
Their CEO, Bente Hatland, she put out a statement, acknowledged it was serious, obviously, expressed, huge relief that nobody was injured.
Standard procedure, but important.
Right. And she said they were working closely with the authorities and also with the ship's actual owner, a different company called Baltnautic, to assess everything and figure out how to, refloat the vessel safely.
Which sounds like a complicated process. Now, while the official investigation is going on, any clues, any theories about why this happened?
Well, interestingly, Johan Helberg himself, the homeowner, he had a thought based on just knowing the fjord.
Oh, yeah. What did he think?
He pointed out that the entrance to that part of the fjord where the ship went off course, it has this slight bend. It requires ships to make two relatively quick course adjustments.
Okay.
So his theory, just speculation really, was that maybe the ship made the first turn okay, but then just didn't make the second one for whatever reason.
That's interesting. Raises questions about, navigation systems, human error, maybe a technical glitch.
Exactly. Could be any number of things. And adding another layer to this, some reports mention that this specific ship, the NCL Salten, actually had a previous issue.
Oh, really? Like what?
It apparently ran aground sometime last year, 2023, though in that case it managed to free itself without assistance.
Okay, so not the first time it's had trouble. That definitely makes the investigation even more crucial, doesn't it? Suggests it might not just be a one-off random event.
It certainly adds context, yeah. Could point towards something more systemic, perhaps, but we have to wait for the official findings.
Right, and through all the serious stuff, the grounding, the investigation, the salvage attempts, you still have the local perspective, especially Johan's, which just brings home how utterly bizarre it all is.
Yeah, he had that great quote just stating the obvious, but it says so much. We're used to seeing ships pass at a distance, not right outside our living room window.
Exactly. And he even managed some humor about it, which is pretty incredible given the circumstances.
It really is. He was quoted joking about having front row seats to shipwrecks now.
And calling the ship a very bulky new neighbor.
The neighbor he expected would soon go away. You've got to admire that attitude, really.
Definitely. A very, very bulky neighbor that crushed his garden, presumably. So stepping back from the sheer strangeness of it all, what does this whole story kind of make you think about? What's the takeaway here?
Well, I think this incident, in this quiet little corner of Norway, it's such a vivid, almost literal picture of how these enormous, complex global systems like maritime shipping, right? Which moves, like 90% of world trade?
Something like that, yeah. Huge.
How those systems can just suddenly, physically, dramatically collide with our very personal, everyday lives in the most unexpected way possible.
It really does pull back the curtain, doesn't it? You think of shipping as this thing happening out there, far away, but here, the difference between out there and in your garden was 5 yards, maybe one missed turn.
Precisely. It shows how much we depend on these vast networks running smoothly, perfectly all the time, and how one failure the reason for which is still, a mystery here, can have such a disproportionate, frankly, bizarre and potentially devastating impact on just one person's life.
Yeah, and given how incredibly close it came, how silent it apparently was to the person inside, and this ongoing question of why did it go so wrong? This specific, very wild incident, it really does make you pause. What does it make you, listening right now, think about all the complex, often invisible systems that prop up our world? Shipping, sure, but also like air travel, power grids, communications.
All those things we take for granted.
Exactly. And the potential for these completely surprising, almost absurd disruptions to just show up. Literally, sometimes right on your doorstep. Something to maybe mull over next time you look out your own window.
Do you think the company should compensate Mr. Helberg for the emotional shock and potential property damage, even if there was no direct impact? Comment on this. Thanks.